Good evening, it's Sandy Hardin and Kathy Lundeen from the Buzzkillers. We're here doing an interview with the 3 of the 4 candidates for the position of school committee on the North Middlesex School Board, correct? Yes. And so they will give a short introduction, introduce themselves, and give us some information about what motivated them to seek this office.
I guess I'll start. Mike Labossiere. I've lived in Pepperell since 2009. I have a 10-year-old in 5th grade at Nissitissit, and in large part I decided to run for school committee because, well, partly because the position was open and I wanted to get more involved in just my son's schooling and the school district in general, and I thought that getting on the school committee would be a good way to sort of make a difference at a local level, because I see lots of things happening at a national level and I feel like there's not a lot I can do about those things, but at the local level I can do something. I can run for this, I can make a difference.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Francine Yencho. I have lived in Pepperell since 2002. I've had one child already gone through the school district. He is now a junior at UMass Amherst, and he was a special needs student in this district. I have a junior at the high school right now, and what motivated me to run was there have just been some issues that I think need to be addressed at the local level. There's no transparency, parental rights are being ignored. There's just a lot of things that I feel need to be addressed in this district that are going by the wayside.
Hi, I'm Patrick McPhillips. I've been in Pepperell since 2017. I have 2 daughters in the school district right now in 1st and 2nd grade. I've been a member of the Pepperell Lions for about 4 years now, and I love the town and I want to be involved with the community and help in any way I can. I think this is a good step for me and for the schools to just continue to improve.
Okay. All right, thank you. And now we have some questions. Some questions were submitted from the public, and we have some questions of our own, so we kind of
it's all
incorporated both of them together. Yeah. Okay, so you start with the first question.
Okay, the first question is the budget. Now, the school submitted a $68 million budget, and there's 3 towns in the district that are pretty much looking at an override. So my question is, as a member of the school committee, would you ever vote no on a budget put forth by the administrators, and why?
I guess I can jump in first.
Okay.
So in my job, I actually spend federal money at Hanscom Air Force Base. So it's difficult to just say yes or no to that question without actually seeing the budget in front of you. Is it logical? Does what they're spending on make sense? So just a blind yes or no towards it would be an irresponsible answer. We're not only responsible to the schools, but we're also responsible to the town in spending, tax dollars wisely and appropriately. So I think it depends on the budget. You got to really review it and dig in and see where we're at.
Yeah, I think the answer, like, would I ever vote no, is yes, because it is possible that a budget could be put forth that's so absurd that there would be no reasonable choice but to vote no. However, I don't think that the people putting together this budget are trying to put together something so absurd that nobody would vote for it. Like, there's a lot of competing interests, I guess you could say. There's a lot of different priorities from different people. There's a limited amount of money available, and so you put together a budget based on all these factors, and generally speaking, I think the people that are doing it are trying their best to make something that will work given the constraints that they're working under, which mostly are the financial constraints.
I can't say that I would vote no. However, I would probably be asking a lot of questions because when I look at the school budget, it's kind of lumped, the categories are lumped together. I'm the type where I want to see line items. I want to see where my money is going. And I think most of the taxpayers in this district are the same way. They want to see where their money is going.
So my follow-up question is, How would you advocate for the needs, the budgetary needs of the district at the state level? And do you see that the state has some hand in our budgetary problems? And how would you advocate for us to relieve some of the pressure on the taxpayer?
I can go with that first. The state mandates a lot of positions that we have in the school district. And I think that if the state is going to be mandating how many teachers we have, what programs we offer, I know that transportation and health insurance are, big elephants in the room as well. I get that. But I think the state should be ponying up more money. Chapter 70 needs to be redone. And I think because we're not the only district facing this budgetary issue, the school districts around us, especially Groton, Dunstable, and Lunenburg, which are all in the first Middlesex, are all facing an override this year. So I think if all the school districts that are facing budgetary issues banded together to lobby the State House to change the formula, look at how other states fund their schools, see what works for them, and see if we can come up with a more equitable budgetary formula.
Yeah, honestly, I pretty much agree with everything you said there. I think that if the state is going to mandate things, then the state should be helping pay for those things. And it's clear that with all of the mandated positions and other things that the district has to provide by law, and given the fact that that alone put the budget to the point where, like, even without anything else, we would probably still need an override or be close to that point. That's something that, while we can't, like, the school committee can't directly affect that, but I think, like you said, if the districts sort of band together and lobby the state to try to do something about that, then maybe we could get some movement on that.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to really disagree with that. I agree wholeheartedly. If the state's going to come down and tell us we need specific things, or they're putting different policies in place, they should be either paying or helping to pay for them. I think we're currently right now also in the middle of a dispute with the state over transportation. They told us if we went to the regional schools, we would get more help with transportation, and I don't believe that happened. So there's a lot of policies being put into place and promises made that the state's not doing their part on.
Okay. Do you see yourself as someone who would round up parents and get on a bus and drive down to Beacon Hill and signs and protest and yes?
I've done it before.
Okay, good.
I wouldn't be opposed to doing it again.
Okay.
Exactly.
So the consensus among you is the state has a hand in the budget, and you're for approaching the
Pressuring
state and pressuring them and asking the necessary questions.
They haven't lived up to their promises on transportation.
If they want to control the policy, they have to help with the budget. You don't get to make the rules if you're not going to pay the bills.
Well, in particular, when those rules directly cause the cost to increase. When the rule says you need this many of this kind of staff, that costs money. If the state's not going to help with that, then it's just an unfunded mandate.
Right, okay.
You're
Are you ready
next.
for the second?
Yep.
Okay, the tug of war over the control of public education is an ongoing struggle. The Department of Elementary and Secondary Education plays a big role in our school system. Do you think it is an effective agency, and are our district students receiving the education that will prepare them for the future?
I guess I'll start with that. I mean, so it's a big question because DESE does a lot. Like, it's a big it's a big group. It does a lot of things, but in the end, their job is in large part to, like, create the curriculum that all state schools are beholden to in order to be accredited. And I feel like those curriculums they act as more of like a baseline, like a minimum of what all the schools are required to provide, but it's not necessarily supposed to be the be-all, end-all. And I think that it's up to, if there are things that the schools are not doing that we feel like as a community, as a district, we should, then there's nothing stopping us from doing that. But basically, we shouldn't rely on DESE to be telling us all the things that we should be doing as a school district, as a community to educate our children. And so if there are shortcomings, now, of course, the other side of that coin is that if if the state, through the laws and through DESE, are telling the districts and all the districts of the state things that they have to do and those things cost money, then we run into that unfunded mandate problem again, where there's no money left over for the other things that we may want to do as a community and as a district, because we're spending all this money on those other things that they require of us.
DESE does play a big role in telling local school districts how to operate their schools. Because they're basically coming in with those state mandates again, telling us this is what we want you to do. Part of my problem is that right now, in the middle school, we don't have Spanish anymore. We have it online. That's basically what it is. When my kids were going through the district, my oldest one started Spanish in the 6th grade. My youngest started it in the 7th. Now it's online. And we're putting these kids at a great disadvantage because most colleges require a second language to graduate from said college. I had to go through it myself. So the other thing is financial literacy is sadly missing in the curriculum guidelines. My youngest son has no idea how to balance a checkbook and didn't really learn about that until he took accounting. Had no idea about economics. He talked to his dad about it, but I want to see those classes, at least accounting, required so that they know how to budget, so that they know how to balance a checkbook. A lot of these kids are going out into the world having zero financial literacy, and it's harmful. They don't understand student loans, as we've seen with the whole student loan forgiveness. They're signing up for these loans at the age of 18, and then when they get out of college, I can't pay that.
So would you be saying DESE has lost sight of what's important
Yes.
for education?
Yes.
And why do you think that is?
I think they're just more focused on the, I shouldn't say emotional, but it seems like social emotive learning, equity, diversity, those are being, not that that's a bad thing, but really what place does it have in the school district? A lot of parents should be responsible for that.
It does have a big place, though.
Well,
there is a large focus on that.
I know, it has a huge place, but what I'm saying is, does it really belong in the curriculum? That's the question. And I think the mandates that they have to include that in math, science, English, it's too much. It's too much.
Yeah, I agree with that, especially coming off of COVID. I know our students are all a year or two behind where they should be, just trying to keep up and catch up. Through the COVID funding, we had extra employees in place to help try to catch kids up, but I know that's starting to kind of fall off. And as far as getting back to, reading and writing and arithmetic, we're failing our children currently. I don't blame the schools. I don't blame the parents. I blame all of us together as a community. If these kids aren't reading and writing at the appropriate levels, everybody needs to step up and get their hands dirty and get these kids where they need to be for the future. They're our future, so we need to do the dirty work and get them caught up with the basics. I'm not saying that the DEI initiatives are not important. However, if kids can't read, what is fair,
So you guys agree on that one, to sum it up, too?
I don't think so.
So there are some points that I maybe would have minor quibbles with, but for the most part, yeah, I think that the core subjects are always, the most important ones, reading, writing, arithmetic, and all that sort of stuff. But, there are some things that I think sometimes parents will sort of expect schools to do certain things that they're not sort of equipped to do, especially, given lack of funding. The sort of schools are perpetually underfunded. Everybody well, maybe not everybody thinks that, but at least the people working at the schools will often say, like, I wish we had more money for this or that or the other thing. And, you know, teaching kids financial literacy costs money. Teaching kids Spanish costs money. All of these things cost money. And if there's not enough money to go around, eventually something's got to give, or something gets dropped, or something, you know, gets lost because there's not enough resources to go around for everything. And so I think, you know, part of the issue is that if you are constantly holding back the funding in terms of like paying for things, you know, eventually stuff has to get dropped. Like you have to let go of teachers and drop the subjects that those teachers were teaching, for instance. And that's unfortunate, because I think that like a well-rounded education that covers not just the core topics, but also other things, again, like financial literacy or foreign languages. Like those are important things to have, I think. But, you know, if there's not enough money for them, then something's got to give.
I would just jump in and say, though, I feel financial literacy is more important than, you know, some other topics currently being taught in high school. I do believe that a parent should be teaching their children about financial literacy. Not all parents can teach their children Spanish. I'm shocked that Spanish is no longer in the middle school curriculum. I don't believe the schools are underfunded. I believe the money is not being spent appropriately because of policies by the state. So if like we said in the beginning, if the state wants to have all these policies in place and kind of stronghold what we do, then they should be footing the bill for it.
Do you have an example of where you think it's not being spent?
I'd have to really rip into the budget. I just know with all these policies coming down and all the rules in place, especially since COVID, with all these extra teachers in the schools, there's just all the funding is being spent. And I love spending on teachers. I don't want to cut teachers. Let's get that clear right now. I just, with, like we said, with all the policy changes and all these new rules and regulations, like that money is going other places as opposed to into the classroom. I think that's where it needs to be.
As a side note, economics and accounting are offered at the high school already. I'm just saying we need to look at the handbook and make them a required course versus an elective.
You're
Next one.
next. That's you.
My next one.
Communication.
Okay. Do you, yeah? Go ahead.
Well, I just had another question while you were talking. It just came to me. So other than money requests, where do you see things that could change, literally different things that could change in the school? There has to be some plan or some idea to fix issues other than money. Because honestly, I've lived in this town a long time, and the school has gotten a lot of money. So when I look at issues or whatever, I'm just asking, do you have a plan, a 1, 2, 3, or something different? With transportation, do you have anything different that you could offer to solve our transportation problem? We'll just use it as an example. Other than going to the state for more money, which we're not going to get.
Transportation's a tough one because, you know, you got to get the kids to the school, and the only way to do that right now is with buses. And, you know, the district doesn't own buses. You know, we hire, you know, we pay D?
Yes.
We pay D to do that. And unless we can convince them to charge us less money, which I doubt is going to happen, then there's really no way to reduce that cost other than offer transportation to fewer students, or, you know, like I did see something that like a lot of the buses aren't very full. Like maybe if students aren't using the bus regularly, then maybe they need to give up their seats so we can have fewer buses. You know, it doesn't seem like a problem that there's a lot of wiggle room in, really.
I'm just looking for an idea, really.
Well,
Just
I know
something.
the district sent out a survey, a transportation survey, for kids that, you know, just for parents to answer, because a lot of parents in this town do drive their children to school. One solution could be, in order to reduce the number of buses, if one parent is in the neighborhood is driving children to school, and they have a vehicle that will seat 8 children, and you're friendly with your neighbors. I used to give my neighbors' kids rides to school if they needed them. Have that as an option, you know, a neighborhood carpool. I'm not saying that that's an answer, but it's just an idea, thinking outside the box. Other than that, it's tough because not only do we have regular transportation, which is D, but we also have the special needs transportation, which is van pool. So we've got 2 contractors in this district that we need to deal with. And with rising gas prices, and it's a mess. It is a total drain on our budget. So we need to, I don't know, think creatively, but there's a monopoly on bus companies. D owns most of the, D is the bus provider in this district.
So does that get back to the state again? Because I think the law was passed in 2015 or something, which made busing a monopoly throughout the state. So that does
Because
kind of
every
seem...
student has to
Yeah,
have
but
a
that
seat.
seems like a law that needs to be changed. Like, we seem to be dealing with the money, but do you see it as another step that needs to be changed?
Or the law change.
Or the law changed?
I think the law needs to be
Yeah.
changed,
Yeah.
in all honesty.
Yeah.
And give the town, the district, a little more leeway to get kids to school.
Yeah, with every student needing a seat, there are like, I drive my children to school every day and intend to for the foreseeable future. I don't know why at the beginning of the year we couldn't plan, I will or will not be taking the bus, and from there know our exact number, know the right amount of buses. Having a seat for every student doesn't make sense, because at drop off every morning, it takes 3 whole carloads around that loop at the elementary school. So if they all have expected seats out there, it just seems like a waste of funds.
And at the high school level, like my kids, they were born in December, so junior year, they were driving themselves to school. So they didn't need a seat on the bus.
Okay, good. Anything else?
Anything else? Okay, next question.
Okay, I'm going to read it.
Okay.
Do you see parents as being silenced and shut out of the public education process? And what solutions could you offer as a school committee member to increase parental involvement, collaboration, and communication with the school committee and with the administration?
I can go first.
Go ahead.
Okay. I feel as though sometimes parents feel they're being shut out if they're not getting the answer they want, and I understand and respect that. I've had nothing but a good experience with the school district thus far. We did have some problems with my daughter entering kindergarten based on COVID and her age, but we were able to work that out with the schools and with the superintendent through more testing to see where she should be. I feel like everyone's very responsive. I've had a great experience. I can see how, like I said, everyone's experience is different, and I'm not saying that maybe people haven't had poor experiences. I haven't heard them yet. I'm not saying they're not out there, but as a member of school committee, I'd like to work on having their voices heard. I just think that libertarian style of everyone has a voice and everyone gets to make their own decision, especially for their children, is very important.
Okay, so yeah, I think that, yeah, it is important to be open to communication. The school committee should be willing to take input from parents and respond to that input where appropriate and necessary. But at the same time, I believe that there are some cases where parents will think that they are being ignored or slighted or not responded to appropriately when they may be asking for things that are unreasonable or just not feasible, or that maybe the response, responding to it, will take more time than they are willing to wait, because sometimes things take time. So there's always a sort of give and take, I think, that needs to be present between the, a school committee, and it's an elected position, you're a public servant. It is the job of elected officials to serve the public in the end. And so you want to do everything you can to serve that public, and that includes individuals who come to you and contact you. But at the same time, at a certain point, those individuals may need to be told, hey, we've done everything we can. We don't have the power to solve your problem with the wave of a wand or the snap of a finger. Be patient.
So I ran for school committee last year, as some people know. And when I was running, I heard from a lot of parents that they would email the school committee, they would email the superintendent, and weeks would go by before they got a response. And that's where the frustration comes in from some parents, is because why is it taking weeks to just say, hey, I received this, I'm looking at it, I'll get back to you as soon as I have a response. It's not hard. It's not. I work for the state. I deal with vendors. I deal with the administrative judges. I deal with clients, attorneys. I always respond to them as soon as I get the email. And if there's an issue, I'm like, I got your email. I'm looking at it. I will get back to you as soon as I have an answer. And usually I get back to them within 24 hours. I don't think things should be sitting there in cyberspace for weeks at a time without a response. That's just not fair.
Yeah, no, I agree. You know, we have full-time jobs, so if elected, you know, sometimes things do take time, but weeks is probably unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree. An initial response of like, I've received your email and we'll look into it, that you can do pretty much right away, or at least by the next day. But yeah, I think if there's an issue that takes a long time to resolve, then maybe, you know, an initial response saying, hey, I'm going to look into this. And then if it's going to take a really long time to do something about it or to get an answer, then maybe another response saying, hey, I'm still looking into it, but it's taking a long time. I will get back to you. Like that kind of communication, I think, is, again, where appropriate and feasible should be done. And I think, you know, again, that like initial response of, hey, I got your email, I'm looking into it, that's totally reasonable to expect that.
So I have a question on the process. When you want to talk before the school committee or address the whole school committee, is submitting your request prior to appearing in the school committee and have them review it, is that an appropriate process?
So my understanding is that the school committee meetings are all run with an agenda, and the agenda items dictate sort of what's going to be addressed in the course of that meeting. And so in order to get on the agenda, you got to contact them in advance.
There is a public portion to it, though, and that is the part where most citizens think they can go and speak openly about what's on the agenda before having it reviewed by the people that I'm gonna, or anybody's gonna be talking to. So, you think that's an appropriate way to do it?
Well, so if there is that portion where the public, so I have to admit, I haven't actually attended any school committee meetings because I haven't had any business in front of the school committee that I wanted to bring up. So is this public portion, is this meant to be like an open forum where members of the public can just kind of talk about whatever they want to talk about?
If you watch any meetings, there's generally a public portion. Are there any public comments or anything? And you can get up and make a comment. But usually when you go, it does have to do with the agenda. And generally, you're not submitting anything before for review.
So I can speak to this because I have tried to speak at a school committee meeting. And the process is you have to submit your talking points or what you're going to be speaking on to the school committee secretary, who happens to be the superintendent's secretary, so that they can, I don't know, review them or whatever the case may be. But then when you get there, you have to sign a sheet that you want to speak, and you may or may not get called.
So I guess my question is that something you're all comfortable with and will continue that, or is it something that maybe needs to be changed to increase public communication and collaboration and openness and transparency?
I think we need to look at it, because I don't think that's appropriate because I think it's, I don't want to say infringing, but it's kind of like you're kind of interfering with my First Amendment rights. I can understand emailing you and saying, hey, I want to speak on this agenda topic, but having to provide you with my statement that I'm going to be making, I think that's a little outrageous.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's actually how it currently runs, but I agree that that would be difficult because during the presentation or during the agenda, topic, your opinion could change. So if what you say doesn't match, the format of what you wrote, does that, penalize you or your time? So I think it should run more like the town hall meetings where there's, time for the open mic. Maybe set some time restrictions because sometimes the town hall ones go a little long-winded, but.
There is a time restriction on the open meeting portion. It's for 15 minutes. Each person gets 3 minutes to speak.
And the chair can always shut the person down if they go off track, so that's,
So yeah, I think that would be a great way for the school committee to hear public opinion just right there in person. It's probably the easiest way to do it.
You guys are making me think of other things. Just one other thing.
Oh.
Sorry, this is what happens. It has to do with public meetings. If there's an issue that involves all stakeholders in the district, not just parents, but grandparents, caregivers, do you have any, I don't know, how do you feel about public meetings? Like have a public meeting that the stakeholders can go in a larger group and talk to the school committee? Because there are more than parents that...
We used to do that back in the day, prior to, I think it was Maureen, who was prior to Joan. She would do public meetings, especially when it came to budgetary issues. She'd do it at the high school. She'd meet with people to get their input on what they thought, about certain parts of the budget. So I think public meetings with every stakeholder, because it's not just parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, guardians, it's taxpayers, senior citizens. They don't have kids in school anymore, but they still pay taxes, so they should have a say in what's going on in their schools.
Budget meetings this year, which were very good, actually. They did kind of get their word out, but there's more issues than budget, but they did do good with that in the public meetings.
Right. I just think it should be something that's done maybe quarterly.
Next.
Add anything to that, or you good?
Are school committee meetings not currently open to the all public, just parents?
No, they're open to the public, but they're once a month, and it's a tightly run agenda.
So maybe just a little more free time at the end for people to come.
Or maybe a more inviting invitation to other stakeholders, because I think it's kind of, people get the idea that it's for parents and their issues or whatever, but if there is a big issue and the town wants to be involved, I just want to know if you think public meetings are appropriate.
I do.
I think they can be appropriate, but one of the things that you want to avoid anytime you have any sort of public meeting is having it turn into a circus. Like, there are school committee meetings, like in the news, seemingly every day, where someone shows up and makes a scene about something, like yelling, screaming, occasionally like fist fights, that kind of stuff. But like, you have to be really careful, I think, that you keep that kind of stuff to a minimum by making sure that there's like tight controls on like, okay, if you want to come and speak, you have a certain amount of time, and when that time is up, you're done, and you don't get to like rant for 20 minutes about whatever you feel like, which, that's one of the things I like the least about town meeting, is when someone goes off on a tangent on something for a long, long time, and just keep it short, sweet, and to the point, basically.
Maybe that's why we have such a strict agenda here. Maybe we missed something 20 years ago.
All right, I think you have the national
Yep.
controversial.
So the next question is national, social, and cultural issues, like gender issues, religion in the schools, book banning, revisionist history, that tend to get a lot of social media buzz and controversy and can be very divisive. Do those belong at the local school board level? Are some of those issues things that you should be addressing?
So there's a problem in this country where large national organizations will pick divisive issues and then instruct people to go to school committee meetings and make noise about those issues. And those issues are frequently ones that, like you said, are controversial in some way. And frequently, the answer to that should be, this is not a problem that we should be addressing at this level, or this is not relevant to the core mission of educating children, but you're making an issue of it. You're trying to claim that there are litter boxes in bathrooms, or that people are grooming children, or stuff like that. And frankly, all of those things are kind of a distraction. They completely veer these things away from, again, the core mission of education and making sure that the schools are a safe and supportive environment where children can actually learn and grow and be who they want to be who they are. And there's too much of that kind of stuff gets brought into these meetings, again, sort of at the behest of these large national organizations that are basically trying to stir things up. And I think that it's a problem.
Francine, we'll just go down the aisle.
So I know a lot of buzz has gone around about, gender issues, books that are inappropriate for school-age children being available in a library. Do I think that, gender ideology, religion, books that if I tried to read at a school committee meeting, I'd get shut down? Those are things that I think can be addressed internally by a school committee. It doesn't need to be drug into the public square. Let's just put it that way. There's a lot of things that can be done internally, quietly. If parents have an issue with something that maybe they have seen at the school that is going on, and they bring it to the school board's attention, like I said, I think that's something that can be handled internally. Do I think that parents should be yelling at school committee meetings? No, I don't. That's not appropriate behavior, and that's probably why the controls are so strict, is because a lot of times school committee members have the perception that parents don't know how to behave themselves because they're doing that. So it's a fine, it's a fine edge that we're walking in today's society with all the divisiveness and just, that's all I can say is it's very divisive right now. All of these issues that are going on, it's just tearing the country apart.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. There's a lot of national sensationalism with a lot of these topics. Where you mentioned litter boxes in the bathroom. I mean,
Which, by the way, didn't actually happen.
Yeah,
just want to make that clear. That was something somebody made up out of whole cloth.
If you show us one, sure, we can look into it and discuss it. I'm not sure they're necessary. If there's a book that concerns parents, yes, we should take a look at it. Maybe there is something inappropriate in the schools. Maybe it isn't. So I think it's that fine line of listening to parents' complaints, but also seeing the proof and actually going and looking at the book or understanding why it may be inappropriate in the middle school or elementary school. I just think there's currently, right now, a hard left and a hard right, and 90% of us in the middle just are logical human beings trying to live and work and do what's best for our kids, and it's just the small little groups on the left and right that are just getting the most attention and that media coverage that just kind of sensationalize everything. So I think common sense prevails.
Okay.
Well, you wish it would.
At the local level.
There's hope.
Okay. Go ahead. You want the follow-up question? So the follow-up question to the national issues, just in the past, this is in the spirit of DEI, when the school hired Firefly to teach teachers diversity equitability and inclusiveness. Was that an appropriate use of tax money? Is that something you would support more in the future of?
Well, I would say what issue were they trying to address? What problems, if any, were they trying to address? And did hiring them and going through that training, did that help address those issues? And that's something that can be difficult to measure because that's sort of one of those kind of, I guess you could call it like a squishy thing. It's not something that there's like hard numbers that you can look at and data and decide like, did this work or did this not work? But I think that in general, you know, the goals of something like DEI training are admirable, but it is worth considering, is this something that the district needs to spend money on given the constraints that we're currently under right now with budget issues and things like that. So it's something that if it doesn't seem like the money spent is getting the return that we would like to see, or if it's not really doing if it's not addressing an issue effectively, then maybe we shouldn't be spending that money. And it really depends, and that, whether that is worth it or not really depends on a lot of factors that are, again, squishy, hard to really pin down.
Okay, so I was very involved in that whole episode of bringing in Firefly. I had friends that were on the equity board that was established in the district. And this whole thing came about in the wake of what happened to George Floyd, which was a monstrosity in and of itself. Nobody should be treated that way. I don't care if you're blue, black, plaid, purple. I don't care what your color is. Nobody should be treated like that by a police officer. Gonna get that out there right now. So Firefly was hired to teach anti-racism, which was in response to an alumni letter that was sent to Brad Morgan, the school committee, and several teachers in the district, and was signed by several alumni of the district and parents of the district. And in that letter, there was mention that critical race theory needs to be taught in the school district, which I don't agree with, because critical race theory is something that is taught at a college level, has no place in an elementary school, none, has no place in a middle school, has no place in a high school. And I just think it was money, because we spent $180,000 on Firefly. And the teachers, because I've spoken to some of the teachers who attended the professional development, because I know teachers in the district, and they really got nothing out of it, other than it's not okay to be white. That's what they got out of it.
Yeah. So I'm not sure if teaching the teachers is what's necessary. And I'm not sure there's a way to combat that other than deal with it. Is Firefly the solution? I don't think so. I think the whole DEI initiative has great intentions, but is sensationalized again both ways, left and right, where it's either it's not okay to be white, or it's, on the other end of like, black people have zero rights, which again, it's somewhere in the middle. Like, as far as DEI, I support it. I don't know if it's necessary in elementary school, middle school, the appropriate topics for the age, fine with it. But $180,000 to teach the teachers, I'd be shocked to find racist teachers in the district. I'm not sure if it was worth the time and money put into it.
Okay, what is your stance on school choice? Not like lateral school choice, moving from school district to school district or that kind of thing. I mean, school choice as tax revenue following the student, or tax vouchers, what some people call them, to the school of their choice and the parent's choice, as in religious schools, charter schools, private schools, alternative schools, home schools. What do you say?
So my views on that is that school choice is more effective for kids who are in failing school districts, like the Boston school, inner city schools, urban schools, because there's a lot of students, not enough teachers, and I think if we give them vouchers that can follow them to a school district that will provide them with an opportunity to get out of that, you know, to advance themselves, to get better. And it doesn't, poor kids, they need that chance. They need somebody to give them a hand up. And if we had that, I don't think it applies so much to our district, just because of the fact that we do have a good district. It's just right now it's hamstrung with financial difficulties. Our kids do get, you know, a fairly good education. They're not being held back from going into trades. They're not being held back from going to college. Whereas kids in the city don't have that much opportunity to do that. So I think if they were given the opportunity to have their tax dollars follow them, that would be a more equitable outcome for them.
Yeah, my only issue with that is that what that does is it drains even more money from those districts that are already struggling. And so in the end, what you have is you've got a district which has basically no money, and so the students who are still there suffer even worse, whereas the kids who, you know, are able to go somewhere else with their vouchers can, you know, get better. And so it's good for them, but it's bad for the children that remain. And so, I mean, I feel like vouchers are a Band-Aid for a bullet wound kind of thing. Like it's helpful for the individual students who are able to take that money and go elsewhere and get a, you know, go to a better district or a better school or whatnot. But the children who are left behind are really left behind even more so than they already were. So they're not a solution to the problem of struggling school districts. And so I think that in the end, a different approach, you know, a more equitable way to fund those school districts would be a better approach to trying to solve that problem.
Well, that's kind of what the state's doing. Their equitable funding is keeping money away from us and giving it to those school districts. That's why we get very little funding.
DESE it really is the whole DEI thing.
Yeah.
It's,
I mean,
funding
that's why
is based
we
on
have no funding.
equitability.
That's why we got $92,000.
The Holyoaks, the Lawrences, the Lowells, they get the bulk of state
Of
funding.
state aid.
Rural places like us, we're not getting a lot of state
No.
aid, but they're actually getting a lot of money. So I'm not sure.
Well, but if they're getting all that money, then why are people leaving those districts still?
Are they using the money appropriately? I mean, I don't know how Holyoke uses their money.
Money,
All
but
I know is
we're not getting
those
it.
schools, year after year, don't make much progress because they get our money. So as school committee members, is that an issue that you need to bring up to the state to harp on, that rural communities also need a fair share of the money?
We most certainly do need a fair share of the money, because Pepperell is broke. We have no money.
But how do you change, what is going to change that state thinking? Because it's pretty ingrained that,
Yeah, lobbying, talk to your state rep. I know we have an election coming up. Margaret is going to have to step up or go away. Sorry, but it's true. She hasn't really done anything.
Nothing really changed.
She wasn't involved in any of the budgetary talks. as far as I know, unless I missed something.
So I guess, are you for school choice or not?
I would say in general, no. I would say that school choice is not a solution to the broader problems of, like obviously in a perfect world, every district would have all the money it needs and the best teachers and everything would be, sunshine and rainbows. But obviously, that's not reality. But school choice, again, just kind of like the voucher thing, exacerbates the problem because then you have even less money to try to address those issues. And if it's a matter of mismanagement of the funds, if the funds are being spent on things that it shouldn't be spent on, then that's a separate issue that needs to be addressed at the district level or the state steps in and takes over. But generally, that's like a last resort kind of thing. So,
School choice or no? Francine?
Me?
Yep.
I am a yes.
Patrick?
Now, is it state level or for Pepperell? Because, I can understand.
Well, state, the state, how they distribute the money affects us, so it's all kind of tied in together.
For Pepperell, it doesn't make a lot of sense, but for the state, I can see in large cities where you have a thriving student in the public schools who's just not performing as well as they could at some of these Montessori's or other schools. So yes. Yeah.
Okay, what's
Next one, special needs. So, does anyone want to talk to the special needs investigation that's underway and special need department in general? Issues, what's wrong, what can be fixed? Because there seems to be some issues there. Francine?
I have had 2 children go through the school district. My oldest has autism. And when he was in the special education department, he got all the services that he needed to be successful today. He's at UMass, he's a junior, he's, doing math, he's majoring in math with the goal of being a math teacher, a high school math teacher. In today's special education department, I would be fearful for him to be successful just because parents are having to hire advocates and attorneys just to get the services that their children need. And it shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't have to hire an advocate. You should be able to go in there and advocate for what your child needs.
And at the same time, advocates and attorneys are costing us more money too.
Exactly.
We're losing money against advocates and attorneys. I think that also comes down to what is being asked for. I'm not 100% aware of what you're discussing about with the special needs programs currently, so I don't want to make assumptions. However,
Right. Well, we have historic out-of-district placements right now. We didn't have that when my kids were going through this district. We had, back in the day, the special education, the preschool teachers would do the evaluations for the children that were coming in. The speech therapist would do the evaluation. When my youngest I wanted him to go into preschool because he needed speech therapy, because he had fluid on the ears, he was deaf, wasn't articulating right. So I just called up Squanicook, got him in to see the speech language pathologist. They did the evaluation. He met with the preschool teacher. They did the evaluation, determined he had a slight learning disability. He was on an IEP, had speech services. There was no fighting for my child to get evaluated. And now there's a fight even to get your child evaluated. And like I said, it shouldn't have to be that way.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on it because I'm not familiar with the situation. My son, he has ADHD, he's on a 504 plan, but that generally has gone well for us. We just have some extra classroom accommodations and whatnot that has gone pretty well for us. The teachers have been very helpful with that. So that's gone well for us. And I haven't had to deal with the special education director directly, so I don't know anything about that either. So my main question would be, like, broadly speaking, like, why are we having these problems? Besides, if there's issues with the director of special ed, then that's one thing, but are there other issues? Is it funding / staffing issues? Are there more kids with special needs than there are staff available to accommodate those needs? Basically, are they overloaded is the question. And I don't know the answer to that, and that would be something that I would want to look into if I were to try to come up with a solution for that. Like, what is the source of these problems, or what are the sources of these problems? Because there's usually not a single cause for any of these things. These things are generally a little more complex than like solve this one thing and the problem goes away.
I can say that back in the day, this school district was a model for other districts when it came to special education. When Linda Reiki was in charge, other school districts would, talk to Linda to find out, okay, what can we do? We do have some good programs at Nissitissit Middle School, and they are good. They are definitely very good. But I think it's right now what we're dealing with is a lot of the programs don't want to have to deal with the more severe special needs kids that this district does have.
I don't know enough about the topic at this time to form an opinion on it. I have booked a meeting with the superintendent of schools just to, pick his brain and ask him some of these questions. I was hoping to do it before this meeting. Unfortunately, we couldn't work that out. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like there's work to be done, but there's always going to be work to be done. So let's take a look and see what we can do to come up with solutions. I do know you said, back in the day, was that probably 20 years ago?
My son is 21.
Okay, so yeah, I'm assuming the numbers since back then are on the rise of children, on the spectrum or with disabilities. So I'm not sure if maybe it's just a amount of children or what's causing.
I know that we are above
we're above the average.
Right,
Yeah.
we are above the average for special needs. But again, no parent should have to hire an advocate or a lawyer to get the free and appropriate education that their child is entitled to.
It should be taken care of before that, because an advocate or a lawyer is just costing us more money that could be spent on the child.
The parents pay that out of pocket.
Well, it also costs the town. So
Yes, it does.
It hurts everybody.
Yeah,
does.
all those kids that go out of district, we pay for, the district pay for,
We
right?
pay
So
their-
if there's
right.
more kids out of the district, then the funding just gets worse. So is that investigation going to make some suggestions, or how is that going to work? What are they going to?
We have a new special education director coming in because our current one, his contract was not renewed. So there's hope that a fresh pair of eyes will maybe rein in some of the issues that we're having. And hopefully, I know there's been some requests to have additional special education teachers hired with the hopes of bringing out-of-district students back into the district, which would decrease the amount of money, which I took a really quick glance at what we're paying, and I think it's, if you add the two numbers for collaboratives and the other out of non-public school placements, it's like $4 million. It's expensive. Plus all the buses that have to travel to take those kids to their out-of-district placement, because we pay for that as well.
I'm going to say, you're going to have your hands full on the school committee.
If it were an easy job, anyone could
That's
do
right.
it.
It's not, there's a lot.
Yeah, no, I know people on the school committee currently, so I kind of have an inkling of what I'm in for.
Yeah. I do have one more question. The override, listening to you, for it, against it, hesitating.
I mean, I think that given the situation and given what would have to be cut if the override doesn't pass and the budget has to be scaled back to account for not having that additional money, I think I think that it is better to pass that override now. And, you know, the last time we passed an override, my understanding is 12 years ago. So it's not like we're doing this every year.
For the high school.
Right. Okay, yeah, so for building the high schools, that was obviously like a specific like single expense that needed to be covered. And in this case, I think it's this long accumulation of things that have been building up, like maintenance items that have been put off, or other things that have sort of basically, in the name of cutting budgets back so that we didn't need an override, things have been left to sort of languish. And I think now we're having to pay the piper for that. I think plus, you know, all of the contracts that are up for renegotiation, the increased cost for transportation, all those other things. So it's all kind of this big accumulation of circumstances that has led to this situation, and passing the override feels like the most responsible choice from the perspective of, if we don't do it, the schools are going to become they're going to be able to provide significantly less in terms of educational services because of all the teacher positions that'll need to be cut, and all the programs that, like all the after school stuff and athletics, would need to be cut as well, is my understanding. So it would be a lot.
Yep. So while I'm not happy to have to vote yes on this override, I'm not pleased at all, because I know my taxes are going to be astronomical. I already know what I pay, and I know what I'm going to be paying by the time my youngest is out of high school. He's got 1 year left. So when they said that athletics and after-school programs were going to be cut, my youngest is going to be a senior. I could not look at him in good conscience and say, yeah, I'm going to vote no, and you're not going to be able to play sports. That would just be the worst parent of the year award. I can't do that, I'm sorry. But I think the other issue too is that the town of Pepperell needs to look at, how do we grow our tax base so that we're not facing this again? But that's a subject for the town meeting.
That's a whole other.
That's a whole other discussion.
That's the select board debate.
Yes, it is.
I'm also a resounding yes. Like the others have said, I think this isn't, they're adding a lot to what the schools already do. It's just inflation plus the renegotiation of contracts, which I believe Pepperell is on the lower end of how teachers are paid in the area. So it's not like we overpaid. I think superintendent just negotiated fairly well for a good contract that the teachers were happy with and the taxpayers were happy with. So I'm a yes. I know my taxes are going up too, and I know it's not, you know, the fun answer, but it's not. We're not adding extra frills and fun to the budget. It's just necessary increases.
Nobody loves to pay higher taxes. Nobody does, of course. Like, nobody goes and says, "Yay, more taxes." But I think reasonable people can acknowledge that there are times when it is necessary to increase taxes, and I think this is one of those times. And it's not a long-term solution, but it is the solution for right now with this situation, which is fairly critical. It seems like that we need this override. So I hope that it passes.
Okay. Do you have any more questions?
No, I think that's
Out of
good.
questions. So you can wrap it up. Tell us your
And-
hopes when you get elected, you know, your plans, anything we missed. Just wrap it up. We'll start with Patrick, because he's been at the end.
Sounds good. Yeah, thanks. I think coming to this position, the most important thing is be willing to work with everybody in the town, from the students to the parents to the taxpayers to, you know, the superintendent. I want to know what the teachers love, what the teachers don't love. It's a collaborative to make it work. So I think coming in with an open mind and no biases and just wanting what's best for the students and for education as a whole is kind of what this town needs right now. So thanks for your time.
You're supposed to say vote Patrick McPhillips.
Don't forget to vote for Patrick McPhillips. And don't forget to vote for Patrick McPhillips.
So my hopes in going into this is to open up the transparency between the school committee, and the taxpayers. I want it to be open communication and just full transparency about what is going on. There shouldn't be any, lingering questions as to how we got to that decision or whatever the case may be, and looking for input from all stakeholders, not just parents, not just the teachers or the superintendent, but everybody. Because ultimately, the taxpayers elect us. We are the boss of the superintendent. So we need to be held accountable by the taxpayers, and we need to, make sure the administration is being held accountable for what they're doing. So everybody just needs to know what is going on with full transparency. And please vote for Francine Yencho on April 22nd.
So, yeah, my hope if I'm elected is that I can come in and use, I'm not a teacher, my mother was a teacher, my grandmother was a teacher, so I know some things about being a teacher, but, I want to learn from all of the people involved, the fellow committee members, the administrators, the teachers, parents, other people who are involved who want to be involved in the decision making. And I think that's the key, is that anyone who wants to be involved should be able to be involved, even if that just means coming to a committee meeting and saying their piece on a particular aspect of how the district is being run. And taking all of that feedback and then using, as much as possible, facts and expert analysis, taking information from people who have studied these things and using that to sort of formulate the overall policies that guide the district. Because, that's one of the things that's one of the main things the school committee does is create those policies that guide the district in how it educates the children, because in the end, that's what we all want. We want well-educated, well-rounded, happy, healthy kids, right? In the end, that's what I want. That's what I want for my son when he graduates from North Middlesex Regional High School. I want him to be happy. I want him to know lots of stuff, and I want him to look back on his time in the district, in school, and smile. I want him to be happy to have been there.
And?
Oh, and vote for Mike Labossiere.
Oh, thank you. I think that's a wrap,
thank
unless you
you.
have anything to add. Yeah, did you think everything was